Common Sense by Thomas Paine. Introduction. Maybe the ideas in the following pages aren't popular enough yet to win widespread approval. When people are used to not questioning something, it can seem right just because it's familiar. And initially, there might be a loud defense of tradition. But that noise dies down pretty quickly. Time convinces more people than logic does. When power is abused for a long time, and in a violent way, it usually makes people question its legitimacy, especially in situations they might not have considered if they hadn't been pushed to do so. Since the King of England has taken it upon himself to back the Parliament in what he claims is their right, and because the good people of this country are suffering under this alliance, they absolutely have the right to question the claims of both and to reject the overreach of either side. In the following pages, the author has carefully avoided anything personal among us. There are no compliments or criticisms directed at individuals. The wise and worthy don't need the praise of a pamphlet, and those with misguided or unfriendly views will eventually change on their own unless too much effort is put into trying to convert them. The cause of America is, in many ways, the cause of all humanity. Many situations have arisen and will continue to arise that are not just local but universal, affecting the principles of everyone who cares about humanity. These situations capture the interest and emotions of those who care. Destroying a country with fire and sword, waging war against the natural rights of all people, and wiping out those who defend these rights is a concern for anyone who has the ability to feel. This group, regardless of political criticism, includes the author. P.S. The release of this new edition has been delayed to see if anyone would try to argue against the idea of independence. Since no response has come out yet, it's assumed that none will, as the time needed to prepare such a response has long passed. It's not important for the public to know who wrote this piece because the focus should be on the ideas, not the man. However, it might be worth mentioning that the author isn't tied to any political party or influenced by any public or private interests, only by reason and principle. Philadelphia, February 14, 1776. Chapter 1. On the origin and purpose of government in general, with brief comments on the English Constitution. Some writers have mixed up society and government so much that there's barely any difference between them in their view. But really, they're not just different. They come from different places. Society comes from our needs, while government comes from our bad behavior. Society makes us happy by bringing us together, while government does it by keeping our bad habits in check. Society encourages connection, while government sets up boundaries. Society is like a supporter, while government is like a disciplinarian. Society is a blessing in every situation, but even at its best, government is just a necessary evil. At its worst, it's unbearable. When we suffer or face the same problems from a government that we might expect in a place without one, it feels even worse because we realize we're providing the means for our own suffering. Government, like clothing, is a sign of lost innocence. The grand palaces of kings are built on the ruins of paradise. If our conscience was always clear, consistent, and irresistibly followed, we wouldn't need any other laws. But since that's not the case, we find it necessary to give up some of our property to protect the rest. We do this because, like in any other situation, it's wise to choose the lesser of two evils. Therefore, since security is the true purpose and goal of government, it logically follows that whatever form of government seems most likely to provide us with security at the least cost and greatest benefit is the best choice. To really understand the purpose and goal of government, let's imagine a small group of people settling in a remote part of the world, completely disconnected from everyone else. This scenario is similar to the first people settling in any country or even the world. In this state of natural freedom, their first priority would be forming a society. There are countless reasons for this. One person's strength isn't enough to meet all their needs, and people aren't meant to be alone forever. So they quickly realize they need help from others, who also need help in return. If 4 or 5 people work together, they could build a decent home in the wilderness. But if one person tried to do it alone, they might work their whole life without getting anywhere. After cutting down trees, they wouldn't be able to move or build with them on their own. Meanwhile, hunger would distract them from their work, and different needs would pull them in different directions. Illness or even bad luck could be deadly because While neither might kill them directly, either could leave them unable to survive, putting them in a situation where they might be said to perish rather than simply die. Just like gravity pulls things together, the need for community would quickly bring our new immigrants together into a society. The mutual benefits of this society would make laws and government unnecessary as long as everyone treated each other fairly. However, since only heaven is free from wrongdoing, it's inevitable that as they overcome the initial challenges of immigration that united them, they'll start to slack off in their responsibilities and connections to each other. This lack of commitment will highlight the need to set up some form of government to make up for the shortfall in moral behavior. A handy tree will serve as their statehouse, where the entire colony can gather under its branches to discuss public issues. It's likely that their initial laws will just be called regulations and won't be enforced by anything other than public disapproval. In this first parliament, every person will naturally have a seat. As the colony grows, the public issues will grow too, and the distance between members will make it too inconvenient for everyone to meet up every time like they did at first when there were fewer people, homes were close together, and public matters were minor. This will highlight the need for them to agree to let a selected group, chosen from everyone, handle the legislative duties. This group is expected to have the same interests as those who chose them and will act as the whole group would if they were all present. If the colony keeps growing, it will be necessary to increase the number of representatives. To ensure every part of the colony is represented, it will be best to divide the whole colony into manageable sections, with each section sending its appropriate number of representatives. To prevent the elected representatives from developing interests separate from those who elected them, it makes sense to have frequent elections. This way, the elected can return and mix with the general body of electors every few months, ensuring their loyalty to the public by the sensible thought of not creating problems for themselves. This frequent exchange will create a shared interest across all parts of the community, leading them to naturally support each other. The strength of the government and the happiness of the people depend on this, not on the meaningless title of king. Here's where government comes from and why it exists. It's a system that's needed because moral virtue alone can't run the world. The purpose of government is to provide freedom and security. No matter how much we might be distracted by appearances or misled by what we hear, no matter how much bias might influence our choices or self-interest cloud our judgment, the straightforward truth from nature and reason will tell us that it's the right thing to do. I get my